This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello Turcaholics, welcome back to Football a la Turca. My name is Kaan Bayezid, and this week I am joined by Jakub Marafolo, Umut Nadiri, and the returning man of the law, Burak Sezgin. Burak, welcome back to the show. It's been a while. How are you holding up in this weird world, this pandemic, the corona crisis? How are things in London?
They are strange, crazy, unprecedented, as people like to say that a lot. These unprecedented times. It's really weird watching wrestling with no fans in like a little warehouse. That is very strange, and they're still going to go ahead with WrestleMania this coming weekend over 2 days. So I am glad I didn't have tickets booked for that. Strange thing is, my mum had a very mild case, we think, of coronavirus. A couple of weeks ago. A little bit of a cough, a little bit of a fever, chills. So luckily that was gone after a week. And I was told to stay in for 14 days. So that's passed as of this morning, but I feel absolutely fine. I'd actually started a work from home job 2 weeks ago, so this is my third week, purely remote based. So I started at like the best time. I think the first week when it really started to hit the fan with regard to coronavirus. And it's weird, I've had to go out to hospital once or twice, and the roads are just empty, like really scarily empty. It's something like out of Resident Evil or 28 Days Later. The post is still working. I took delivery of a new hookah pipe today, and lots of other bits and pieces that have been coming from Amazon Prime, Parcel Force. But each day you look on the news on the TV or social media, and you see something new come out. You don't know what's true, what's bullshit. So they are. Yeah, it's a mental time to be living through. So we hope that we can keep you, our dear listeners, entertained and take your mind off this lunacy, crazy time going through, and give you some Turkish football memories and anecdotes. That hope you're sitting there with a glass of whiskey and a cigar. If you're Azat, that would be him, probably in a silk robe with no underwear. I can imagine him be there.
The visual, I'm just imagining him going all Basic Instinct and crossing his legs and then switching the legs around. That's the image I have in my head right now.
I'm sure it is, and I'm sure he has an ice pick somewhere that he uses to chop ice to put into his probably 30-year-old single malt, and then sit there with his cigar like Hannibal from the A-Team, which may be a dated reference to some, but you should look it up. I imagine.
Don't reruns of that still air? I mean, I know that they did for many years here in Belgium. Maybe not now, but definitely when I was growing up, they still aired all the time.
They're on a cable channel somewhere. You know it. So.
Yeah. Before we get to some lighter subjects, I do want to note a couple of updates on how Corona has impacted Turkish football in particular. So Fatih Terim, as we reported last week, was struck by the coronavirus, but he has been, how did they put it, released from the hospital from hospital yesterday. They did the regular blood checks and stuff like that, and he was sent home. So looks like he's on the better hand. So good there. Rusty Ridgebear also reportedly has gone ill and taken on the coronavirus, unfortunately. And there was a very scary report from BBC Sports that he was in critical condition, but nothing of that reported in the Turkish media. So I was told by some friends that BBC Sports in the last couple of years kind of have suffered their credibility. So it also appeared a little weird to me, like how would they break the news? Where would they get that news from? So anyway, get well soon to Rüştü, of course, legendary Turkish goalkeeper, former Fenerbahce, Barcelona, Beşiktaş player, of course. I think that's pretty much all. Are there any other reported cases in Turkish football that I'm forgetting right now, guys, that you recall? Max Kruse, I think, was also found positive of coronavirus, right? Burak?
Yes, he was reported to have had it, but I've not seen any updates on that on my Twitter feed, and I'm subscribed to a lot of Fener channels, so they would be retweeting any news if they had it. So I'll have a look and get an update during the course of the show for you and see if I can find one.
Yeah, of course, get well soon to Max Kruse too. Get well soon to everyone who has suffered from this virus, of course, in football or out. Anyway, guys, I was thinking, we spoke a bit about it off air. We were brainstorming over the last couple of days of fun things we could talk about. And Umut last week in our VIP recording, I think it was, also gave me a great idea, which I think we're going to be doing today. But for our listeners, I think we're going to be putting up some polls in the next couple of days. We are going to talk about some legendary players. We're going to be doing player focus episodes, guys like Sergen Yalçın, guys like Alex de Souza, of course, maybe Fatih Tekke or George Hagi, Wesley Sneijder, those types of players. So we'll be putting some polls up for that in the next couple of days. We will be getting probably to all of those players eventually, since we are probably going to be sans football for a while. But in the meantime, I thought it would be fun for us to talk about colorful figures in Turkish football over, say, the past 20, 25, 30 years. I'm thinking mainly players that played for outside of the top four. We can also mention a couple of those guys that maybe played for the top four, but mainly I want to look outside of the top four. You know, you had that really strong couple of years, like 5-6 years at Gaziantepspor, were doing really well in the late 90s, early 2000s. They had lots of interesting players. Then Nizlispor had a magnificent run in Europe in the early 2000s, which they had some fantastic players. Gençlerbirliğ obviously had their run in Europe, their really good run in the league in 2002, 2003. They had many fantastic players, but not just those clubs, of course, other clubs too, Bursaspor, Konyaspor, they all had very colorful figures, which I was thinking we could talk about today. And we won't get to all of them, of course, but let's just see where the conversation takes us. Who wants to kick things off and let the snowballing begin?
The one that always jumps to my mind when you say colourful figure. Now, this guy was from like the mid-90s to the end of the 90s, so some of our listeners may not remember him, but those who do will always have fun memories of him, and that is Steve Kompella. Now, if that's a name that when you hear you think, oh yeah, Kompella. This is a guy that, alongside being, I believe he was a goalkeeper at Gaziantep or Gençlerbirliği, and then he ended up at Çanakkale Dardanelspor. But aside from being a goalkeeper, he was famous for being a talk show host in Turkey. That is right, you heard correctly. Steve Kompella of, I think, either Zimbabwe or Zambia. No, I make a mistake. South Africa. So yes, he started his career at the Kaiser Chiefs, I believe he was there. But then he would be on all these programs like Telegol and Televolle in particular. He was always showing up to restaurants. He had a few skits where he was interviewing or being interviewed by singers like Ibrahim Tatlıses, Mahsun Kırmızıgül, Adnan Şenses. I think there was a story in the press once about him having his sunnet ceremony, so I'm not sure how true that was, but he was wanting to become a proper immersed in Turkish culture. And I can't remember if there was if this was a setup or if it was like a tabloid story and they went to his circumcision ceremony.
Oh,
and no, he was a defender. I make a mistake. I thought it was a goalkeeper, but it was actually a defender. But I don't remember anything about this guy's playing career at all in Turkey. Now, that could be because he came very early. So he came in 1993 to Gaziantepspor, had 3 years there, and then had 1 year with Dardanelspor. And that was the last team that he played for. He actually played for the South African national team as well. 24 caps. But it goes to show that the most I remember about him is a song that they used to sing on Televole. And I would just remember the bit that went, "Com Bella," and it would say something. I'm not sure if it was a lyric or if it was a tune, but it was just ending them saying, "Com Bella." And I'm like, who is this guy? And hosting his own talk show, even though the guy doesn't speak any Turkish. And I think he was quite good friends with Acun, the guy, the TV media mogul now in Turkey, who is responsible for programs like Survivor and other shows. And I think him and Acun were like a duo, or Acun helped out by getting him onto TV. But like I said, I remember nothing about his playing career. Seeing here on his stats that he scored 2 goals, but I don't remember him on any highlights programs. They were quite far and few between back then anyway, like in the 90s. This was, I think, even before Marathon had properly started, and this is before...
Yeah, it was still the Sinebeş days, I guess.
Yeah, so it was before Sinebeş when he came.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember watching some Turkish football on TRT live before it went to paid behind a paywall.
Yeah, it was in 95 or so, I think. Sinebeş. 96 maybe.
96. It was the season after Fener won the title. Because I remember watching that match on TRT live with my family in the front room because we had Turkish satellite. And the year after is when I went to Sinebeş, and that was the year I properly got into the Turkish football.
When you had to start paying for it.
Exactly, and we didn't pay for it because there was no way to get it in the UK at that time. Even pirate or by nefarious means, should I ask. But Kompela is one, like I say, and he sticks out for his antics off the pitch. I think he went to court once, and there was a live TV camera there interviewing him, going into the courthouse. I'm like, what the hell is this? You know.
So what on earth happened to him then? If he was such a big figure in the media in the mid 90s, or late 90s or whatever, it sounds a little bit like Pascal Numa before Pascal Numa.
He could have been without the putting his hand down his shorts, but I don't know. His career ended in Turkey at Dardanelspor, and I don't know what he did after that. Maybe he stuck around by a little bit, but then he looks like he went back, and he's now a football manager. He's managed lots of different teams, I believe all in South Africa. But yeah, he's just looks like he's doing the loop. Someone like Bülent Uygun or Bülent Korkmaz, who's just managing a team, getting sacked, managing another team, getting sacked. It looks like he's doing that. I don't think he's ever won any major honours, but he's just going around. It would be interesting to do a little bit more research on where he is now and what he's up to. But when you say colourful names, because that was in the era where Televole was big as well. It just came onto the TV. It had the techno music, and it was just footballers out and about doing things like something like Aykut Kocaman has gone to eat ice cream, or Hakan Şükür has bought a new lawnmower. And This is one I remember. Iskandar, that used to play for Trabzonspor, who Jakub might remember, because this was in the 90s as well. There was one interview where Iskandar and his wife had adopted or bought a new cat. And it was just after the month of March, and they were saying to Iskandar, you know what happens in March, right? You know, that's like the cat's mating season, or the month that cats will get together. And he's like, oh my God, has March passed? Has March passed? And like I say, that happened, 20 years ago? But I
Maybe
still
they
remember.
Should air reruns in these crazy times. Just air reruns of all those interviews and lawnmower incidents.
They should, because they were just like just pure crazy. It's like, you know, they get caught going out shopping to buy a pair of jeans, and like the paparazzi's there saying, hey, Bolic, you know, why are you buying Levi's instead of Lee jeans? And it's like, I prefer the way they feel against my legs. No, they always gave stupid answers like that. But yes, that was me going through teenage years as well. So interested in all sports, football. So that is a rambling memoir.
So Steve Compella, okay, that's the first one. I honestly can't say I have any memories of him. I highly doubt Jakub or Umut too, as they are younger than I am. So, but there's another interesting name. You said that I know he did play for Fenerbahce, but he also played for a bunch of other clubs in Turkey, including Istanbulspor and Malatyaspor, and Göztepe, if I'm not mistaken, and Gençlerbirliği. Elvir Bolic, of course, the Bosnian brute slayer of Manchester United. Elvir Bolic was a fantastic figure, I think, as well in those second half of the 90s and in the early 2000s. What do you guys remember of him? He was a fantastic striker at one point at Fenerbahce, very highly rated, but he had a little bit of a drop-off when he came back. You know, although
I will let someone else go first if they want to on the topic of Elvir Bolic.
Umut, you started watching around 2002, 2003. Do you have a lot of memories of Elvir Bolic?
Well, in my first ever game, I went to live in Izmir. It was against Altay, Galatasaray versus Altay in Izmir Atatürk Olympiad Stadium, and he scored there, I think. And he
that's Balic, not we're talking about Bolic.
Oh.
But that's not bad, though. I mean, that does
Shite.
bring it up. It was very coincidental that we, at the same time, the same era, we had two players in Turkey. One was named Elvir Bolic, and the other one was named Elvir Balic.
Also, Bolic as well played for Galatasaray at first, no?
He might have, yeah. Did he?
Yes, he had a few games. I think 8 or 9 games there.
And then he went to Fener, right?
He went to Gaziantep, then he came to Fener.
Okay.
For Bolic, as far as I remember, he is the one guy who break the record of unbeaten run of Manchester United in his home, in their home stadium for like 40 years. Maybe was it like that?
26 or something, I think, in Europe.
40 years in Europe.
40. Well, and it's funny because that was a shot from outside the box, took a deflection, and that match ended, I think, 1-0. And then, when was it, 1996?
Yes.
And
so was it Peter Schmeichel in goal?
Yeah, it had to be, right?
Yeah.
Who famously hated getting lobbed as well, so you knew he was pissed off.
All right.
But it took a deflection, didn't it? From a defender?
Yeah.
Big deflection,
yeah. But the funny thing is, like, what was it, 10 years later, the same thing happened again, this time Beşiktaş, and it was Theo who took a shot, took a massive deflection, and again United had a long unbeaten run in Europe, ended against the Turkish team with a deflection from outside the box at Old Trafford. I think it's very funny and coincidental, just wanted to throw that out there, but please continue with.
Well, that's like, I think my memory about Elvir Bolic is quite limited because, firstly, as far as you watch your team, then you get to know the other teams as far as you watch. And I think about that Manchester United game, there's a little anecdote about how Ali Shan told that we'll wait and see, we'll beat Manchester United in their home. Some kind of a saying like that from him, and it became true afterwards. Suddenly, I think Elva Bolic played in the Istanbulspor's last era in the Super League.
Yeah, I think he was at Istanbulspor in 2003, 2004, when also another colorful figure made his debut in Turkish football, Pini Balili.
The Israeli.
Yeah, you'll definitely have more memories of him. I think, for you, Bolic is kind of like, the mid-2000s.
More old school,
Yeah. So
kind of, yeah.
Jakub, any special memories of Bolic?
Not really, to be honest.
Any memories of Pini Balili then?
No, my memories of football pretty much started in the 2000s. So, and even if it's probably the only colorful person that I do remember is pretty much just Pascal Numa.
Wow, come on, you have to remember. I mean, there's so many figures.
Do you know about Pini Balili's Gareth Bale-esque goal scored in Atatürk Olympiad Stadium?
I mean, I do remember the names. I remember Bolic and Balic, but I don't remember certain games or anything, because at the time I was pretty much too young to watch football, and when I did really start to watch football, it was pretty much only Trabzonspor. So I remember Compella. I don't, I was like 4 or 5 years old. But just to give an example as what kind of effect he had, even though he had like a short career in Turkey, I'm from Trabzon. Well, at least my parents are from Trabzon, so I'm also from Trabzon. And there are people in the village where I live at, where my parents used to live at, that still, when someone does something ridiculous, they call each other Compella. So. It's like 25 years later, and nobody except people like Burak remember the guy, but he does have like an impact on Turkish people, like Turkish football in general.
Legend.
Yeah. So,
instead of like Dumkopf, it's now Compella.
Let's hope he doesn't listen to this show then.
Oh.
No, but it's not. It's never like meant in a bad way. It's just like it is what it is. I don't think he would be insulted by it, but I could be wrong.
Maybe we should adopt that. If somebody is saying something we don't agree with, when we're having an argument, we can just say, you're being a Compella right now.
Well, I've seen too many Turkish people calling the former Fenerbahce keeper the Kova Yaşar every time they speak about Yaşar Duran. And he even calls himself like that, like, he doesn't get resented about it.
Which goalkeeper are you talking about now?
A goalkeeper from 1980s, very old generation to us ourselves, but it's the goalkeeper before Engin İpekoğlu, was it? Yeah,
that sounds about right, because we had Tony Schumacher just at the end.
Oh the Turkish one though. They say he's like a good goalkeeper, but like famous about his blunders. He does it too often that like the team has to score more than they do in a game.
Kind of like
that sounds about right, because Engin was got very bad towards the end of his time. That's when Rüştü came in, and then after him there was a few different goalkeepers before Volkan came. Recep, yeah, we remember him. Yeah, the guy with like the crazy teeth and the buzz cut hair. Oh,
yeah, and he stands on his line very nicely and watches Sergen brush it in. Fantastic. So Pini Balili is another one I think that definitely jumps to mind. He had a good career. He started off with Istanbulspor. I think on his debut, he that was that 3-0 away win. I remember that vividly because me and my cousin, I was in Turkey at the time, and it was the season opening. And of course, Beşiktaş had just won the title that season before, and it was the season opener. Fenerbahçe were playing at home with their big new signing, Pierre van Hooijdonk, and they were playing Istanbulspor. And my cousin Alperen, he's a big Fenerbahçe fan, so we were sitting at the local cafe watching the match. I think I may have told this already. This is that game where at halftime I had Adana kebab with very spicy pepper, and my cousin dared me to eat it, and I ate it, and it numbed my tongue for half an hour. Anyway.
Yeah, Adana's supposed to be spicy.
Yeah, but it was like a pepper that was on the side of it, like like a tiny little pepper, super spicy. Anyway, so I digress. But I remember vividly Pini Balili making his debut in Turkish football because they won 3-0 away at Kadıköy, and who'd have thunk that Fenerbahçe would end up lifting the title at the end of the season after that match. I think confidence probably sank to their shoes and to their boots, but they had a fantastic season, of course, with Pierre van Hooijdonk playing a big part in that. But Pini Balili, that's where he first made an impression on me, and obviously I think he was also part of the Sivasspor team that almost won the title in 2008-2009. I think he was part of that team. Had a good career in Turkey for sure. Relatively small striker. I think it was like maybe 180, 177, something like that. Couldn't have been too big. But a good technical player. Good. I seem to recall he had a good lob and stuff like that.
He is really fast. He was really fast.
Yeah, fast and decent finisher, but not too big, right?
Yeah.
And always had a short hair. I remember that too.
Yeah. He had an incident with Ayman Abdelaziz at the time. Like he had heard like bad chanting from the spectators and the fans, like as because he's Israeli and he's probably Jew. So the incident began like that, and there was an incident regarding him and Ayman Abdelaziz, and Ayman Abdelaziz,
Egyptian.
Yeah, Egyptian and Muslim. And he tackled him really harshly in an occasion where it led to people think that he did it intentionally, like because of the religional differences or the beliefs, something like that.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. I always was kind of, I was surprised in a positive way, really, that an Israeli player could have such a big role in Turkey. And I'm talking about Haim Revivo right now. I mean, he was massive for Fenerbahçe when they won the title in 2001, and then obviously later he ended up going to Galatasaray too. I was always kind of surprised by that he was so embraced in Turkey, despite that he was Israeli, and I mean, lots of Turkish people don't have too much good to say about Israel, I think. But I like the fact that there wasn't any racism towards Revivo, at least not that I saw at the time, at least. But Revivo, very colorful figure. Burak, how did you like him when he was playing for Fenerbahçe? I would really like to hear your thoughts on him, because he was instrumental in that title season.
Well, I loved him. He was a great player when he was playing for us. I think he was playing at the same time as Rapajic as well. Yeah. So we had two amazing left-footed forward players in the team, and it would always be, when it was a free kick, it's who's going to take it, Rapajic or Revivo. And he just was so silky. He seemed on the ball. He's quite a good-looking guy as well. In that bright yellow and bright blue horrendous kit that unfortunately we had at that time during him. But yeah, like I said, that year 2000-2001, when Mustafa Denizli was a coach, I think it was after Euro 2000, where Turkey had reached the quarterfinals and he had got given a contract, and there was a few new signings that had come in, Revivo being one of them. And he was just a revelation, breath of fresh air. I mean, I can't remember how many goals he scored, but I think he was on at least 15 league goals, maybe even more. And he was instrumental in that team. I remember him playing. He wore number 10, I think, but I'm not sure if he was a traditional number 10 in the sense. I don't remember him ever being out on a left wing, because I don't remember him ever having any real blistering pace.
I think he was more a Tumer type rather than like a typical 10.
Yeah, so he's like kind of an attacking midfielder, just played off the striker. Because I think it was still Kenneth Anderson up top at that point as well, who I loved as well, because I always loved him when he played for Sweden because of his goal celebration.
He got him from Lazio. He was a really big name. He was old, but still very decent.
And his celebration, where it's like he'd score a goal and he'd do like the touchdown sign that the refs make. The touchdown is when they put their arms up in the air. I think this was like the Aussie rules football sign, where he'd stop, extend his index finger on both hands, and just do a pointing down motion until they were level. If you knew the Kenneth Anderson goal celebration, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm butchering it right now. but Revivo just was great for that first season we had him. The second season,
you got Ortega the second season, right?
Yeah, and
no. That's the season after that. Yeah.
I think a few more foreign signings came in, and because of the success of the championship, so they obviously had to go out and buy more players, and that kind of like pushed Revivo away to Galatasaray, of course, where he didn't do as well.
Yeah.
But that first season, he was a revelation. Free kicks, shots, passes, just adding some flair to the team as well. Even though he wasn't like a really big flair player, whenever he got the ball, he just made things look effortless. And when he did score a spectacular goal, of which there were a few, they were really spectacular. And for me as a fan, I never looked at Revivo and thought, oh, there's this Israeli guy playing for my football club. I thought, there's this amazing left-footed player playing for my team, working with Rapajic, working with Kenneth Anderson, working with Mirkovic, who's back in defence, and the other players.
Mirkovic.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. He was a typical Eastern European tough defender
From Juventus, right?
I believe so. Yeah, he was no nonsense. I'd really liked him when he was playing for us. I think we had Nikola Lazetic as well.
Yeah.
Lots of names that end in "ich" at that time.
Yeah, lots of those guys had a connection with Italy. Rapajic went back to Italy afterwards. I think Lazetic did too. Mirkovic came from Italy, like I said. I don't know if he went back, but it was a very interesting generation, and it's just weird that it was a very exciting team, I think, and that kind of all fell apart because just 2 seasons later, not much of that was left. It felt like. And I think you guys had Ogun as well, and Abdullah Ercan, Ogun Timiskanoglu, of course. You know, those two, the duo from Trabzonspor. They played a big role.
They were both great when they came to us. I think they were both in their late 20s, so we still got a good 3-4 seasons out of them. I think Ogun was a captain for a number of seasons whilst he was there. Mm-hmm. And he was a great player. He was a great defender. Composed. He always had a lovely head of hair, shaking around.
My cousin has a signed shirt from him, a Fenerbahce shirt.
Well, he should treasure that. Definitely. But yeah, that was an interesting team. And I remember when they won the championship, because that was, I think it was about 4 years since they'd won it previously, and they had those T-shirts printed saying "Efsane Giridund," and I had one of them. Don't know where it is now, but it would not fit me. Definitely not. But
when I was a kid, Abdullah was really a colorful figure, so to speak, because he stood out because he was the only blonde Turk around. These days, you see more of them. Caner, Serdar Aziz. You see them more regularly. I don't know if they're like naturally blonde or dyed. I mean, in those two cases, they're I think naturally blonde, but we've seen, of course, other examples like Emre Mor who dyed his hair and stuff. But like, I remember just Abdullah Ercan really standing out back then because of his blonde hair. He was also balding, I think, like at the back of his head.
He was. Fun fact, he came the closest to scoring for Turkey at Euro 96, where we lost all 3 games and scored no goals. And for those that remember this, I remember this very vividly as well. This is me showing my age here, dear listeners, but it was the final group game against Denmark. We'd lost to Portugal. We'd lost the opener to Croatia. And then we'd lost to Portugal, who would be the bane because we lost to them again in Euro 2000, but let's forget that. And again in Euro 2008, the fuckers. But yeah, it was, I don't know at what point in the game this was, but I think it was someone like Hami took a corner and pinged it to Abdullah, who was waiting on the edge of the penalty area. And he connected with his left foot like an absolute rocket to this ball. And I think it was Peter Schmeichel in goal at that point as well. And it missed the top left-hand corner, but literally by inches, like skimmed the top of the crossbar. And there's me thinking, fuck. That would have been goal of the tournament by far. No one would have remembered any other things, but at least we would have scored. And I've been trying to find that clip or on YouTube for a while, but I think I will need to up my search now, because that really was the technique on that, to hit the ball out of the air with his left foot. And I think that was the reason he was rumoured to be going to Newcastle at one point as well, from Trabzonspor, but I don't know what happened. The talks broke down. Maybe him and his wife didn't want to leave Turkey, but he was a very skilled and gifted left back.
I could have seen that work back then. He was, a typical left back with a good hard shot, and it was definitely a colourful player. For those who remember, and he was a Turkish left back for many years, up until the point I think where I guess Ümit Özat kind of took over the reins there.
The right-footed left back.
Exactly, but he had so many. I remember very vividly, and now I know we're going a little bit big four, but in that 2003-2004 season, of course, Beşiktaş were amazing in the first half of the season there. But I remember also watching, because my dad at the time, he worked in a cafe, a Turkish cafe, so that's where I used to watch the Beşiktaş games, but I would go to him every weekend almost, and I would usually stay over 2 days. So I would go with him to the cafe, and then when Beşiktaş played at Beşiktaş, and I'd usually watch all the Trabzonspor games too, because most of the people I watched with were Trabzon fans, and then there was like one guy, he was a really big Fener fan, and the Trabzonspor and the Fener guy, they like always watched together, so I watched with that clique of people. So I always watched the Fener games too. And I just remember having this, when you're watching the opponent and you're almost, and they have like a player and you're almost afraid every time they get on the ball because they're gonna get like an assist or something. I always had that feeling with Ümit Özat. Every time he cut into his right foot and then crossed it in, because he seemed to get so many assists that season. He was really good that season. And I even remember Serhat Akın taking the corners, kissing the ball before he took him, and then like ended up in a goal, of course. So that was a very fun time in that regard. But we're talking so much about Fenerbahce right now. Let's talk a bit about maybe, unless you want to add some thoughts to that, of course. But let's talk a little bit about other players after from other teams.
Yeah, I just want to say, I just remember Ümit Özat was also seen to have perfected the art of the outside of the right foot slice cross when he was at left back. And yeah, I always thought it was strange that he was playing at left back, because I think at Gençlerbirliği he was a centre back. When we bought him from, I think it was either Gençler or Gaziantep.
I think it was Gençlerbirliği. It was also Ümit Karan was playing there at the time, and I and Hasan Sash was playing at Ankaragücü, I think.
Yeah.
Hasan Sash at Ankaragücü with
With
hair.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about one of the teams that I think Umut or Jakub mentioned, that great Ersun Yanal Gençlerbirliği side, which had so many colorful players. I think so many memorable players. Umut, do you want to take one and start get the ball rolling?
Well, I can start with Ali Tandoğan.
Of course. And so just a shout out to one of our listeners, Ozhan, Denizlispor fan, of course. That team, that Gençlerbirliği team, consisted out of a lot of former Denizlispor players. There were a bunch of them. Ali Tandoğan, for example, but that's not the only one. Ahmet Hasan, El Saka, I believe. Mustafa Doğan, I want to say. Perhaps, and who else did they have that also played for Denizlispor just like the year before that or something? They had a bunch of them, really. Anyway, go ahead. You were talking about who was it? Ali Tandoğan, of course. Yeah. Also ex-Beşiktaş.
Ex-Beşiktaş, but like for that year, they went up to the later stages of UEFA Cup.
Against Valencia, they got knocked out barely.
Yeah, like they missed a lot, but I think it was just Valencia. They dominated their defense.
Didn't Valencia win the UEFA Cup that year as well?
Yeah.
And they had knocked out Beşiktaş the previous round, I believe.
I think so. And I think Ali Tandoğan was one of the, key players for that team, because the team wasn't exactly playing with a proper winger, and Ali Tandoğan was using the whole flank himself for the games, and he was really good on his foot, and he scored a free kick goal during those UEFA stages.
The previous round or something, he scored a very important... Was it against Rangers? No.
I don't remember exactly though, but
it's funny. I watched all of there's this YouTube channel that has all these European matches.
It was about against Sporting.
Yes, right, Sporting Lisbon. Right, and they won in Sporting 3-0 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, and one of the key players were actually Süleyman Yula as well. He was one how Onyekuru played with Galatasaray recently. He using the wide range of area to run down the flanks or the central area to find chances to score. He wasn't a great finisher, but as he's getting into a position too often, that he found those chances frequently, he scored a bunch of goals.
Yeah, he was. I think in his best season, he had 18 goals or something like that. But he was like a 10-15 goal a season striker for many years for Gençlerbirliği, which also ultimately ended up in a stint at Beşiktaş, but that didn't go so well. But he was a typical counter striker, I think, and also one of those players in the early 2000s, of which there were many that came from the Belgian league. And he's back in
he
Belgium,
came from Lokeren, no?
I think Anderlecht or
was
so. I mean, him.
Marcel Mbayo came from Lokeren.
Marcel Mbayo, yeah, right. And he was also at Gençlerbirliği, and he came from Lokeren, that's right. And he also had João Preko, if you remember him. He played for Fenerbahçe, I think, for one season, but he mainly played
Preko! Sorry, just had to get that in.
Did he mainly... I think he went to Gaziantep, and I think he also maybe had a season at Diyarbakırspor. And there were, to complete that list of former Belgian league strikers, Süleyman Ulare as well. He was it at Fenerbahçe as well for a year?
Yeah.
And he had made Genk champions in 2000 together with.
They are in that Fenerbahçe team where Fenerbahçe have beaten Galatasaray in Ali Sami Yen in that year of the UEFA title in 2000, where Samuel Johnson scored that deflection free kick to Taffarel.
Oh, Johnson! Oh my God!
I loved him.
I'm gonna say
big Ghanaian.
I'm gonna say something that's gonna sound really bad, but I always thought he looked like a monkey, and I don't mean that in a racist way, but I just mean like he had such a face like a gorilla. But yeah, no, he looked like a gorilla. He was like
Just a tank. His upper body, I couldn't believe he could like move that fast because he had such a big barrel chest, and his jawline was very square with that like short bust like haircut. But he was an absolute beast in that midfield. And yeah, that deflected free kick where we had just been shit that season, but somehow he pops up with a deflected free kick. But yeah, I'd love Johnson. No, definitely, he was the first Ghanaian I loved.
Didn't you win the title that season?
Not that season, I don't think. No, not when he scored the free kick.
I think so.
No, because Galatasaray were the champions that season.
Oh wait, 1999-2000 is when you won the UEFA Cup, right? And 2000-2001 is when Fenerbahce won the title, right? I just really loved the way that the commentators would pronounce his name, Johnson. Yeah,
you gotta love a Turkish commentator. Yeah. But yeah, he was the first Ghanaian I loved. And the second Ghanaian I loved was Stephen Appiah. So
yeah, he was amazing. Yeah. Stephen Appiah was, I think, if it wasn't for that injury, he might have been the best player in that position in Turkey. I don't know. I can't really think of another one that's better. Yeah, I mean maybe Melo, similar.
We would have we'd have had to have sold him if he'd got better. So. Devastated for his injury because he was he was the second Ghanaian I ever loved, and you never forget the first two.
And Samuel Johnson ended up going to Gaziantepspor afterwards, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think that's where we bought him from in the first place.
That might be, yeah, and I think he went back there as well.
Yeah.
And Gaziantepspor were just such a colorful team in those years as well. They had fantastic players, and one I definitely want to get to in a second, but we're talking a bit about Gençlerbirliği now, so Ali Tandoğan, Yula, great shout there. Jakub, at any point, if you want to throw in something, feel free to jump in. This is just kind of a free...
You just missed Philip Deebs.
I want to talk about him later. Let's say Jakub.
The name that came up, especially since we were talking about Gençlerbirliği, was Jeremy for me. It was unbelievable to see a player that played in Turkey to go to a big team. He went to Real Madrid from Gençlerbirliği, and then he went to Chelsea, Newcastle, then returned for a bit to play at Ankaragücü. But I remember a story about the legendary Gençlerbirliği president İlhan Cavcav that passed away. I don't know. I don't remember when, like 5 years ago or something.
2016, I think.
2016, and he had a story where, in his words, supposedly Real Madrid came to them and talked about. They came to talk about Jeremy, and they said, "Okay, we'll give you $2 million for him." So İlhan Cavcav took a note of paper, and then he wrote $5 million on his. And put it on the table, and the Real Madrid people just looked at it, and then we were like, "Oh no, but it's too much." And then he just immediately stood up and said to his manager, like, "Okay, we're done here. Let's go." And the Real Madrid people so desperately wanted him that they just said, like, "Okay, please don't go, sit down." And they talked about it, and they did sell him for $5 million at the time. So that's one of the stories that I always remembered. And I remember that you were talking about Ali Tandoğan, and I remember his time at Bursaspor. For some reason, he kind of, I remember him being the heart of the team.
He won the title with him.
Yeah, I know, but the title-winning team, that he was like the heart of the team. He was like always always in the battles. He never shied away from battles. And he maybe wasn't the best player, but I always love players like that just give their all on the field. And that's a player that I always admired.
He once broke Ibrahim Üzülmez's face. And
You're giving me more reasons to love him.
And like a year or two later, they're teammates, which was funny. I think that was when he was still at the Denizlispor. But yeah, Ali Tanwan, fantastic. Philip Deems, as they used to call him. He actually works for Telenet now, I think. I would love to have a chat with him about his time in Turkey. He was fantastic. I really thought he was a phenomenal player when he was playing for Gençlerbirliğ, and he actually ended up going to Borussia Mönchengladbach, having a really good career there after his stay in Turkey. Always went under the radar in Belgium. Never got the time of day, never got a chance at the national team. I remember very well back in the day, because Belgium back then wasn't what Belgium is right now in terms of the national team, and I really think he should have been there starting right back at the time. And I think that was also kind of legitimized by how well he did in Germany after he was in Turkey. But it just felt like they were never paying attention to him, and he was such a crucial player for that team, the Gençlerbirliğ team that finished in third position with 73 points or something, I think, in the 2002-2003 season, and he was there for a good couple of years. Fantastic player, good shot, decent penalty taker, very hard worker, and I think he even scored against. Did he score against Valencia in the UEFA Cup? He might have. He scored a penalty, I think, against Valencia. I think. Fantastic player. And then the Gençlerbirliğ side just had so many interesting players. I mean, El Saka. Who doesn't remember him? He was a fantastic central defender, Egyptian international, had a red card every other game almost, but he was a fantastic hardcore defender, like a really, guy, typical hard defender, got stuck in, and fantastic player. Anyone else from that Gençlerbirliğ team, guys, that you really have fond memories of? There's one more name that definitely jumps to my mind.
Serkan Balcı.
Yeah, he got his start there. Him and Okan Koç, both of them, had a really good season in the 2002-2003 season. Serkan then ended up going to Fenerbahçe, and Okan Koç to Beşiktaş. Serkan, of course, later also to Trabzonspor. I remember, again, a memory of mine when me and my cousin again, Alperen, went to watch a preseason match between Gençlerbirliğ and Ankaragücü at Ondo Kusmais, and we were sitting really close to this, to the side of the pitch. And I remember my cousin telling me, I really like this player, and he's a big Fenerbahçe fan. He's great. He's a fantastic talent. He's fantastic. His name's Serkan Balcı. I really want him at Fenerbahçe. Fenerbahçe is the greatest. He always said that. I just tried to do an impression. He got his wish, and Serkan ended up going there, but not that big of an impact, I think. But he was a very good player too. Another one, Josip Skoko. Do you guys remember him?
Oh yes, Austrian, right? Or Polish?
Australian.
Australian.
Yeah, and he was also a player that won the Belgian title with Racing Genk. A very important player for them in the 2001-2002 season when they won the title with Skoko, Sonk, Mirsad Bezlia, Mumuni Dagano, Jan Mons. Yeah, I have very fond memories of that team. Josip Skoko, I was always surprised he ended up in Turkey, especially going to Gençlerbirliğ, but that just kind of showcases where Gençlerbirliğ were at the time. They could go and take a key player from the Belgian champions and just sign them up back in like 2003, 2004, because they of course came off of a fantastic season the year before. They were in the UEFA Cup, stuff like that. So he was a fantastic player. Not really a number 10, but an attacking midfielder. Very, very good player. There's one more name that I definitely wanted to mention. Mustafa Doğan. Mustafa Özkan. Sorry. Mustafa Doğan. Mustafa Özkan. He scored so many important goals in Europe for Gençlerbirliğ as well in that hot run they had. Also had a brief stint at Beşiktaş beforehand. That wasn't too successful, but he ended up also going from Denizlispor to Gençlerbirliğ, I think. Anyone recall him? The guy with the beady eyes? I'm getting a lot
Yeah.
of messages.
I don't know. The name is kind of familiar, but I can't like picture his face right now.
He had like middle lengthy hair, like brownish.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was a
Like
striker.
green eyes, no?
He had like really beady eyes, like kind of almost like Colina-esque.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I just quickly Googled him, and he looks like a mafia boss. He has like long hair, a beard. Plays for Beşiktaş, Antalya, Gençler Birliği, Göztepe, Ankara Gücü,
Malatya.
Had a long career. Antalya.
He was a good player. Underrated, I think. I definitely think he could have had a second stint at a bigger club. He could have been a good second striker, I think. But yeah, I think back in those days, if you had a time at one of the big clubs and it didn't work out, you didn't get a second chance that quickly. But he was fantastic. And then a player I definitely want to talk about, Umut's favorite, Ömer Çatkiç,
No.
Gaziantepspor. When you say colorful figure in Turkish football in the Super League history, that is the first name that jumps to my mind. Bald goalkeeper with a goatee, always wearing white boots. He stood out, and he was also like, I want to call him the Turkish Beto. He was like the goalkeeper that made incredible saves, always with a little bit too much flair, like sometimes going for a relatively easy like ball and just like sweeping through the air like a panther, like a little overselling it almost, to put it in a wrestling term. But fantastic goalkeeper, I felt.
He was like you say Turkish Beto. I would say he's a sort of a bootleg version of our Bartes. Just because they
Wannabe version.
I'm sure that
yeah.
Bartes might have been like his idol, because I mean,
look at his hair and his the way he did his beard. He's like how you get those fakes when you go to Turkey, like the fake Armani and then the fake Gucci belt.
Çakma.
He would be like the Çakma Bartes. I think that may have been what they called him at one point as well. But yeah, I remember him just being a character. Just like you say, the way he dressed. I think he always had his socks pulled up above his knees.
Yes,
in that stupid way that people do. And I remember him wearing short sleeve shirts in goal.
Yeah, he did often wear short sleeve shirts. Yeah.
Oh, well, which he didn't see very often. I think that was a little part of the image. The fancy boots, like the cue ball hair. He probably did it, the morning of each game and shined out with some Vaseline.
It looked like it for sure, yeah.
Yeah. And did he spend all his time at, like, Gençler, or did he go to some other clubs?
No, he played mainly. I mean, he made his name really for Gaziantepspor in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then after like 5 or 6 years, I want to say, at Gaziantepspor, I think he went to Gençler Birliği, had a good time there. I actually met him while he was at Gençler Birliği, and then afterwards, I think he closed out his career at Antalyaspor.
Yeah,
he had a match against Galatasaray. You remember that one? Where
the snowball thing.
It was snowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was snowing, and I don't remember how the game ended, to be honest. I only remember that he was in goal, and it was against Muslera and everything, and someone from the stands threw a snowball, and it hit him like on the back of his head.
Ear.
And on the back of his ear, and he laughed his ass off. He was like, I think he was happy with what was happening, and Muslera was losing his shit, and they got into a discussion, and the only thing he could do was like smile.
I remember that. Sabri went super furious afterwards, and he said the referee that he does it deliberately to piss off all the fans on the stands, but referee didn't book him. I don't know why.
Wait, what? He got hit deliberately by a snowball?
No. He does his act deliberately to piss off all the fans.
The game ended 1-1. And I remember seeing Fatih Terim on the side just with his shit-eating grin that he always has. And, it made my day, because this was after they plucked all our players to, get that one team together.
Yeah.
So it was hilarious to see.
I remember one vivid memory of Ömer Çatkiç, that one national team game that back in around like 2004 2005.
Against Latvia?
I don't know that he was starting as a substitute, and something happened to Rüştü and he was off, and Ömer just came in, but for like 5 minutes or 6 minutes he played so shite that, but we didn't concede in any way, but the two balls went off the post shots, and he was playing so shite that he wasn't even concentrated in the game, that the coach took him off and put in a goalie who's called Taner or Zafer. I don't remember really well, but he just played 6 or 7 minutes entire game, like after
Was Fatih
Rüştü.
Terim the coach back then?
I don't remember.
I think so,
but
because that was
yeah,
after
like how, like
Şahin.
he was just like a, rabbit that's so light, like in front of those shots he was like
It's
immobile.
weird because he was a real. I think for many years, for like a decade, he was one of the absolute best goalkeepers in the league. But for some reason, whenever he played for the national team, like he couldn't cope with it. And I remember when we went out, after our fantastic 2002 World Cup, and then of course the 2004 Euros were coming up, and we had a decent qualification campaign, and we were playing the playoffs to go to the Euros, and our opponents were of course Latvia, the measly Latvia, and we got absolutely shafted by Verbakovskis, if you remember that name, the little Latvian striker that just absolutely wrecked us, and Ömer was in goal that second match, that return leg at home in Turkey, where we wet the bed, if I'm not mistaken. That was the return leg in Turkey, I think. And he was in goal, and I think he conceded twice, and that cost us the Euros that summer, or the following summer. So I think that pretty much cost Ömer his opportunity at ever succeeding Rüştü as a Turkish number one. I also think it probably cost his chance at getting a big transfer, because at the time, I really think that he was on a parkour, on track to earn himself that transfer. He was at one point named at Beşiktaş very persistently, but I don't know. Then he ended up at Gençlerbirliği instead, and he never got his opportunity at a big club, at a really big club. I think that maybe just has to do with his poor run in the national team whenever he did get an opportunity there. But I always really liked him as a goalkeeper. Like I said, I met him when he was playing for Gençlerbirliği. They were coming for a training camp in Belgium, and they were playing a local club. And I got the chance to talk to him. Was super friendly, a very nice person, and always had very fond memories of him as both a player and from that one time meeting him as an impressional young kid myself. So I know Umut doesn't like him, but he was a nice guy, man. He was a nice guy. FETÖ'cü or not. Where is he now anyway? Is he in the States or is he locked up?
I don't know.
Who Ömer?
Yeah.
He's probably still trying to find, a couple of the goals that he let in somewhere. Maybe I hope he's still got a bald head and a goatee, though, wherever he is.
Well, he used to be a commentator for League TV for a while, and he still definitely had that bald head and the goatee. But then the whole Fethullah Gülen thing happened, and he was a Gülenist. And I think after that, his career as a commentator on TV was pretty much over. I don't know if what happened to him, and if he actually ended up getting like arrested or something, or if he fled the country. I have no clue what happened there. What happened to Arif? Is he still in Turkey? Did they get locked up, or did he join Hakan in the States?
He's in exile somewhere. I don't know where. He's probably
I'm sure he's in the States.
He's giving diving courses somewhere.
Okay. Arif Erdem. That brings me to another name. Serkan Aykut, guys. You remember him?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Another example of a great in an Anadolu team and a bit of a flop at a big team. Um, I'm thinking about the correct guy on I striker. Played for, was it Kayseri or Malatya?
Samsunspor.
Samson, that's the one.
Samsung.
Yeah. He's
That's-
one of the players that's in the Yüzler Kulübü. You know, the 100 club, 100 plus goals in this Turkish Super League. He's quite high up in that list, if I'm not mistaken. I think he has like 150 or so. Somebody look that up, Umut.
Yeah.
And he had like a really special hair, like I don't know, like peach fuzz. It was like really strange hair.
It was out of the same hair, like style school as Edip Akbayram. It was like fuzzy. It was almost you wanted to turn him upside down and scrub your frying pan to get all the grease out of it. It was that type of haircut.
I had a guy in school when my first year of what was it? How do you call that in England? Primary school maybe? I don't know. There was a Turkish kid and he was a Galatasaray fan. I don't remember. I think his name was Aykut. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think his name was Aykut, and he had the same hair. He also had the peach fuzzy hair. It was kind of unfortunate because he actually got picked on because he had really weird hair. Not by me, by the way. That was not my style, but no, he was nice for being a Galatasaray fan. Wonder what happened to him. Anyway, just reminiscing about people's hair now. But no, he stood out for sure, and he had that one season I think at Galatasaray, but that, like Buek said, wasn't a big success. Do you have any memories of that, Umut, that Serkan Aykut being at Galatasaray?
Well, not really. Only that he was a part of the team. Was he the part of the team that got the championship back in 2002 under Mircea Lucescu? I think he was a part of the team. That team.
Either that year or the year before. I'm not sure.
It could be both as well. But I remember that he's not the part of the team afterwards because he's that part of that, dogfight against Beşiktaş Samsunspor game that got like 7 red cards.
But that's like 2-3 years. That's like 2003, 2004. So
yeah. So he scored twice in that game. Yeah. For Samsunspor.
yeah, it's possible. Yeah, against 8 people or so.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Beşiktaş Beşiktaş were off for like 6 red cards, and the game was just over afterwards for 3-0. I say that Samsunspor people claim him as a legend striker amongst the others, like Cenk Işler as well.
I definitely think he's in that list. Zafer Biriol, Okan Yilmaz, Serkan Aykut.
He also was a clinical finisher and a decent, dribbling and technique. Not like just a finisher inside the box. He has a decent technique and he can dribble with the ball, and I think he has the quality to reach for the any kind of team in the Dört Büyükler, the 4 big teams in Turkey. And he did it for Galatasaray, but even if it isn't for Galatasaray, he could easily play in Fenerbahçe or Beşiktaş or even in Trabzonspor.
I just remember he was very highly rated in Championship Manager 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
I remember that, and I think that's he was in the Galatasaray team that won the Super Cup. So yeah, I guess that was the 2001, 2002, right?
Yeah.
Last season of Hagi.
Yeah, definitely. He was a part of that team. I remember he was playing in from the highlights, of course, not that I watched them live. He was like playing alongside with Mario Jardel at the time, and I think he was, clinical and really strong up forward. And until we get Ümit Karan from Gençler Birliği, he served really great. But Ümit Karan took over until for 10 years or so. Then he went to Eskişehirspor.
More like 6 or 7, I think. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another player that played, I think, his entire career at Bursaspor, Okan Yilmaz, another member of the Yüzler Kulübü. He scored a bunch of goals, even scored for Turkey in the Confederations Cup in 2003.
Yeah, when you say Okan Yilmaz, I remember the penalty he missed against France in the Confederations Cup. I was watching that live.
Semi-finals, isn't it?
Yeah, I was watching that live, and I was just, saying, why did he take that penalty? Because the squad was full of really, really talented players like Yildiray or like I don't know, many players, Tuncay.
He was a penalty specialist, I think. He took him for Bursaspor, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, he was a good sharpshooter, like inside the box, but unlike Serkan Aykut, like he is like not the kind of like player to dribble with the ball or like to create chances like without finding the ball inside the box. And he is a great header as well.
Another great header, Zafer Birol. Fantastic at Konyaspor. Mainly a header, really. That was pretty much all he did, I feel like. At least that's my memories of him. He had a short time at Fenerbahce, but that wasn't a big success, Burak. But were your expectations high for him?
Blink and you miss it. Blink and you miss it. Exactly.
He was a Beşiktaş Academy product, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
I mean, it's another one of these players where he just did nothing. He didn't even score for us.
He barely played too. I mean, wasn't that at the time you had Guiza and stuff, or Kejman maybe?
Well, it wasn't. Yeah, it was in the 2005-2006 season. So I'm guessing he would have been bought as a backup. But we bought him, and the season before he was top scorer with Konyaspor.
I think he was top scorer back-to-back seasons even.
It could have been definitely the season before he came to us, but like I say, we bought him as a backup, and because we did quite well that season, we didn't really ever need to use him, which was a shame. And it was probably, you'd think it's a good guy to have as a backup, but he didn't even score. And okay, it would be interesting to go back and look at the stats to see how many games he played in, were they in the starting 11, and if it was a sub when he came on during the game. But he didn't score, and he was shipped off to Bursaspor, and then afterwards he just went from club to club each season and not doing very much before he retired. What did he? Yeah,
he had a game back in his Konyaspor days that he scored 4 goals in a single game against Adanaspor back in 2004.
And so he was prolific. You have to think, when he made the move from Konya to Fener, did Istanbul get the better of him? Did he just kind of falter at the big club? Did he let Istanbul nightlife get to him? Did he work as hard? Did he have an attitude change? I think that season was still Christoph Daum. So did he get on with the manager or not? Lots of different things to come into play. But if you're just going off pure stats, you'd expect him to have at least scored a goal. Going from being the goal crawler to the goal joker is an interesting fall from grace.
But I think that's something we see a lot, though, where we see a guy become top scorer in an Anatolian team, and then they get a transfer to a big club. I think Serkan Aykut was top scorer for Samsunspor, then went to Galatasaray, and didn't do anything really. Fernandao, same thing really. Bursaspor scored a shit ton of goals, and of course, for Fenerbahce, he was not a flop, but
that was
never
the Şenol Güneş effect.
Yeah, for sure. But Zafer Biriol, Makukula never got the chance, but I'm pretty sure he would have ended up in a similar way. Just trying to think of other top scorers of Anatolian teams that maybe made that jump.
Gökhan Ünal.
He was good at Trabzonspor, though. He wasn't a big success at Fenerbahce, but Trabzonspor definitely did well there. Roman Kratochvil, anyone remember him?
Yeah, the center back who scores a lot of goals, like the earlier version of Diego Lugano. He was like dead.
He's also a penalty taker for Denizli.
Yeah, but like he has those headers and volleys that he went up for the corners or the set pieces, dead balls. So like he always took a goal from the deflections, rebounds, or the bounces from the dead balls. Like he took those chances really well. That he had an eye for goal.
Yeah. And another player that I really remember from that era that was definitely one that made the league fun to watch was Maxim Romachenko.
Yeah.
Gaziantepspor, later Trabzonspor, of course, but also a fantastic footballer. Free kicks, crosses, long shots. He had a lot of good technical qualities. He was a very fun footballer, for sure. Anyone have any particular memories of him?
Well, he has the too many free kick goals in the league. That I remember one goal he scored from way out, like 40 meters. Like he scored a goal. It could be a goalkeeper blunder, but he shot it really well. That he scored in his like Bursa days, I believe, like back in 2006 maybe. I could be quite unsure, but he was like the mastermind in the teams he played. Like he's like the budget Sergen. He has all the talents and he has all the good left foot and his.
Was he a lefty? I don't remember.
Yeah, he's a lefty, as far as I remember.
How do you recall him at the Trabzonspor, Jakub Romachenko?
I think he's gone, Jakub. Oh. Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Oh.
Oh well. The show must go on. Let's do a couple more, guys. Burak, any players from the 2000s maybe that you that jump out to you?
I'm trying. I'm trying to think here because I know we want to go for more of the obscure-ish players. So not
obscure, but like from the smaller clubs, perhaps.
Exactly that type of thing. And I'm trying to think who sticks out. Players that we played against, and the one that will always stick out for me is Hürriyet, the bane of Alex. The play Hürriyet. So I can't remember which team he played from. Eskişehir. And whenever Alex is interviewed, like anywhere, he will always say that Hürriyet was the toughest player he played against, just because, and that's how he became known to Fenerbahce fans in particular. So he may be a player that is, if you're a fan of another team, you may have heard of him as well, just because it's always a running joke that Hürriyet would always rough up Alex and give him a hard time.
But they respected each other, though. I had the impression. After the game, they seemed to pat each other on the back and, hey, good game. You did a good job today.
Yeah, it was. I don't think there was ever any instance where either of them got into a fight or they got given a red card. But Hürriyet was just a very a physical defender, and he realized, or he took it upon himself to like man mark Alex, or when he wasn't man marking him, to ensure that he knew he was there, whether that was like a push in the back or a pull of the shirt. I can't remember off the top of my head any really vicious or malicious tackles, but he was just one of those defenders that you find at one of these honored teams that are just like a bit rough around the edges, not the best technique, but they do what they have to do to put the player off, and that's usually through committing lots of fouls and stopping the play, and being a little bit rough. So he's the one that sticks out to me, and for that particular reason, not because of any specific skill he had, but just the fact that he was always renowned for going in very, very hard on Alex. And I think also towards I think it was the end of the 2000s, I've forgotten the guy's name. I think, no, there we go, Sergen Yildirim at Bursaspor. Sticks out just because he exploded onto the scene as this like young whippersnapper of a striker, and he was heralded as Turkey's next big thing, a bit like Batuhan was at Beşiktaş.
Very similar though, not even 30, and both of their careers are pretty much over.
Exactly. I don't know how fat Sergen is now, but I do remember, once when, this was quite recent, a few years ago, when Hasan Ali just turned him and sent him off to the to get a hot dog. I think this is when he was back at Bursaspor towards the end of his career, and
he's still he's still playing. I think he wasn't Survivor last year, wasn't
really?
He? Yeah,
bloody
this year.
hell. Well, this I remember is Hasan Ali giving him like the Cruyff turn, and Sergen just sliding off the pitch into the advertising hordes. That was from quite recently, but yeah, in the 2000s, I just remember thinking, oh wow, here's a young Turkish striker. He's got a bit of a pace. He's finishing well, but then what tends to happen a lot to young Turkish footballers with hype around them happened, and he fell from grace. He got the big move to Galatasaray, but even before then he wasn't, I think, amazing at Bursa. And then
one really good season when they won the league. Him and Volkan Şen were very instrumental.
Yeah, and you can see where both of them went. Volkan Şen probably had a little bit better of a career.
Sure. But he's actually having a good season at Adana Demirspor right now.
Yep. So that's good to hear. I always thought he was a bit of a head down and run type player, but he did have his benefits. But you could also say Volkan Şen then as well. Those two at Bursa towards the end of the 2000s, you watching them play in that exciting team, you would have been excited for the Turkish national team. But then you soon realised that dream was a dream, and you woke up. So.
Yeah. I think we had a lot of those moments. I remember a striker that used to play for Adanaspor when Necati was also there. I think his name was Ali something, and he had like kind of long hair and always had like a hairband in that was like really noticeable. I don't remember his name. This is really annoying me. Umut, do you remember Adanaspor striker at the same time as Necati? Ali
Asım Balkaya.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think that's him.
Oh,
might be.
It could be.
I don't know. Might be. Did he have like a beard and long hair?
Could be.
Anyway, yeah, that's just a name that I don't know. Ali something. I don't remember exactly.
Are you sure that he's called Ali?
Yeah, I think it was Ali. Hasan Kabze didn't play for Adanaspor, did he?
No, he's from the Çanakkale Dardanelles.
Yeah, okay.
He's from that same era with Mehmet Topal and Fevzi Elmas.
Didn't Gökhan Zan also come from Çanakkale Dardanelles?
Yeah, but he was way before, not the same generation.
Isn't he? How old is Hasan Kabze? He must be from like 82.
Hasan
82, 83.
Kabze could be
I think
82,
Gökhan
yeah, 82.
And Gökhan Zan must be 80 or 82 too?
I don't know.
Nah, I'm
Let me
looking it
check.
up right now. I'm checking. 81, so they're not that
Yeah.
far apart.
Maybe he shined up way before that. He went to Beşiktaş.
Yeah, he went to Gaziantep. I guess they picked him up quicker. I think didn't he go to Gaziantep?
Yeah, and you know that Selçukyan also played for Çanakkale Dardanel.
Ah, I didn't know that. Well, that reminds me of that mid-2000s Vestel Manisaspor. That was very interesting with Filip Oloshko. And what was the guy's name? Medina?
Yeah, he had the heart attack on the field.
Yeah.
I was watching it live, and it was super frightening to watch. Like having to see a player fall down suddenly on the field, and the ambulance was just rushing in and took the boy out. Like, when they zoom out, the camera zoomed in. You can see he was shaking on the, what they call sedye, the guy's,
Stretcher.
the guy, stretcher. So that guy was shaking, and I think I don't know, but he might have retired 2 or 3 years afterwards. I don't remember that.
Mikal Meduna. I didn't recall that he was that tall. Yeah. Anyway, I think that'll quite cover it for this week. Unless any of you want to have another player that you definitely want to talk about this time, but we can always do something like this again. So I think we went a decent length. So then I just want to thank you guys for joining me this week, of course, and also thank Jakub. And all the best to Özer right now, who's flooded with work. Apparently he's getting a lot more extra work on his plate during this corona crisis. I want to wish all of you, our listeners, the best of health, and stay safe out there. And thank you for listening to Football a la Turca. See you again next week, hopefully. Yeah, and don't forget to vote in our poll. We'll be putting up some polls for topics in the next couple of weeks. And also another thing I thought was really fun, guys. Maybe we can do this for VIP, or maybe we can just do this for a regular show. We'll have to wait and see. But I was thinking maybe favorite shirts, iconic favorite shirts, something like that. I think that's always fun as well. So we'll have plenty of fun stuff to talk about in the next couple of weeks to distract you from the strange times we're living in. Anyway, au revoir.
Sayonara.
Good night. Stay home, stay safe, and wash your fucking hands.